Well, yesterday, we finally saw President Goodluck Jonathan over in Nigeria sign the asset management company bill into law in the country. It's something that the market has been waiting for quite a while now. And to run us through prospects from here on out, as he sees it, Funmi Agusto joins us right now to run us through this. Thanks so much, Funmi, for joining us this afternoon. Well, the CBN governor yesterday on CNBC clarified that AMCON would be a permanent structure with a lifespan of 10 years. It would remain a part of the CBN's regulatory infrastructure going forward to help, kind of balance those NPL levels we're seeing in banks. Just how significant a move is this as you see it right now?
Thank you very much. As you said, the AMCON bill was signed into law yesterday by President Jonathan Goodluck. And the central bank's governor said that it's going to be a permanent feature of the industry. We expect it to last for at least 10 years. And the objective is to manage the NPLs, non-performing loans in the banking sector. The effect may not be too significant in the sense that, at least according to the bill, we expect AMCON to be initially capitalized to the tune of $1.7 billion. Industry total assets today stands at $100 billion, deposits of $70 billion, and loan book of about $30 to $35 billion.
Well,
within the context of those numbers, within the context of those numbers, $1.7 billion is just under 2% of industry total assets, and about 5% of loan book.
So let's go into detail here. I mean, how do you see then AMCON working? Because it's certainly the detail at this stage of the game that the market is still anticipating.
Yes, we're all still anticipating the details of AMCON, but we have enough in the general sense to get a feel for the effect. As it is now, a lot of Nigerian banks are underlent. Our estimate in Alliance Consulting is that the banking sector is underlent to the tune of $20 billion. And that's the difference between the actual loan book and the maximum that is allowed by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, AMCON, under the current capital limit, will provide an additional $1.7 billion, which is just under 10% of the extent to which the banks are underlent of liquidity into the banking sector. The challenge really is how will the regulators incentivize the banks to actually begin to lend again, because the $20 billion by which they are underlent is actually about 1/8 of the gross domestic product of Nigeria, and that is significant.
Let's take a look then at prospects moving forward, because a lot of focus is on possible merger and acquisition activity, and many saying that it was with the formation of this that that would act as a catalyst for merger and acquisition activity in that banking space moving forward. How do you see things shifting in terms of the banking landscape in Nigeria from here on out?
I mean, certainly in terms of mergers and acquisition, the AMCON law is a very welcome development, because it's going to lead to a situation where the so-called toxic assets are properly valued and exchanged for bonds, which are rediscountable into cash. So what that does is that it gives prospective investors in the banks that are distressed a basis for the valuation of these assets. Because one of the uncertainties that had plagued the rescued banks in particular is that prospective buyers and investors are not quite sure whether the toxic assets had been properly valued. But to the extent to which these toxic assets are going to be largely exchanged for bonds, there will inevitably have to be some measure of valuation, which will then mean that the balance sheets of the banks will then, to a large extent, be appropriately valued.
Well, let's take a look then at some of the results because we're so limited for time, and we've just seen First Bank out with first half numbers. Have you managed to make any sense out of those numbers that have emerged out of First Bank today?
Yes, it's a significant improvement over what we had seen before. Before taxes, they made about 200 million US dollars for half year, and after taxes, it's about 170 million US dollars. I mean, First Bank is the largest bank by total assets and deposits in Nigeria today. Those numbers are significant. But we're still awaiting, and of course, it's also significantly better than the results that United Bank of Africa, one of the big four banks, released yesterday. The market is eagerly awaiting the results of Guaranty Trust Bank, which is expected to be quite profitable as well. But the results for First Bank is actually decent. On a return on an annualized return on equity basis, it's a decent and sustainable about 14 to 15% return.